Welcome, everybody, to the Scale Up Show. This is your host, Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest with me back. I have Sahil Patel, who is the CEO of Spiralyze, back on. Had him on in the previous episode, talk about AI with pattern recognition, some of the hyper unique things that they're doing from a business model perspective, as well as leveraging AI for, I should say, pattern recognition within data, which is amazing considering just the span of what you're doing and the outcomes you're creating. So Sahil, welcome. Happy to have you back, man.
I'm really glad to be back. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Thanks, man. Well, let's do this. So one of the things that you really piqued my interest on in the last episode, and I'm bringing this up because I don't think any other guest has ever talked about this. So this is why, you hit me right between the eyes with the sledgehammer on this one. And that's the fact that you guys have performance-based pricing. And we're not talking along the lines of consumption-based pricing. We're talking about boom, you get the results, you get paid. You don't get the results, you don't pay, right? Which I think
That's
right. Truly where the market's going. Talk us through that. You said you kind of stumbled into it and I didn't really dig in. I kind of did a shitty job of being a host of not digging into that because we had so many other things. So talk to me about that, man. How did that happen?
So let me tell you, for everyone listening home, here's what we do. There are 34,000 websites that A/B test. We crawl them, we find the best A/B test, and we have this massive data set that allows us to predict for a particular client how much lift we can get them by running A/B tests that have already worked for other similar companies. So we can say for a B2B SaaS website in the HR software payroll platform space that has this much traffic from paid, this much from organic, this much in the US, whose main call to action is a start your 7-day free trial. Here are 10 tests, and here's about how much lift you can get, and here's the chances that it will work for you. So it's hyper specific. And then because we can make that prediction, we've done it over and over and over again, we can then monetize our value prop by saying, hey, here's a fair price. We'll get you this much lift for this much. If we get you less than this, you pay nothing. Get you between this and this, we think this is a likely outcome. You're going to pay us a little. And if we hit a home run, and this is what we think a home run looks like, by the way, just to quantify, it's about 30% lift, conversion lift, in the first 3 months. You pay us our full fee. And it's capped also to make it easy for them to say yes. Because understand me, the CFO gets worried when she goes, okay, I love pay for performance, but if you hit this huge number and I have to write you this big check, it causes some near-term cash flow problems. So our fee is always capped. So it's, hey, if we get you 30% or more, you pay us our full fee, which is a fixed success fee.
Okay. So I think you're kind of screwed either way, right? You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right? So if you overperform, people are upset, at least on the CFO side. If you underperform, people are upset. So here's the thing where my question is with this, I think it makes sense. Perfect. How did you, without the massive data set and then having the predictive engine, how did you know that it was going to work? And kind of how did you do it early on in the early days?
In the early days, we didn't.
Okay.
So we said earlier about kind of stumbling into this. In the early days, by the way, in the early days, we would really just give good ideas to our clients. And there were a couple problems with that. First, like most good ideas, they often got ignored. They'd be like, great, you worked at Spiralyze, what'd you get from it? Oh, we got some good ideas. Did you implement them? Well, now, there's lots of reasons why clients don't always do the things you want them to do, but I think everyone can relate to that. Number two, you run out of good ideas. Just there's a finite reservoir of good ideas everyone has. And by the way, good ideas that are based on anecdotes don't take you very far. So two things happened. One is we started the scraping thing. We call it scraping, finding other people's A/B tests. We changed the data set from the, relatively small slice of the universe that we can call a customer to the entire internet worth of A/B testing. Two, we got more involved in actually implementing and running the tests. And as we did it, we got more and more efficient in doing it. And we also focused on B2B SaaS. And when we then could directly impact and control the selection of the test, and we do it highly collaboratively with our clients, the design, the copywriting, the building, and the execution of the test, and then independently measure the performance of the test, we could then say, we'll make a prediction, we'll guarantee it, and you only pay us if you get the lift. And because we're the ones running the test, everyone's happy because the execution is fast, it's high velocity, it's measurable, and they only pay if they get the lift.
Totally makes sense.
But by the way, it's not like we set out with a business plan at the beginning and had it all figured out. This took years to get there.
Yeah.
But once we figured it out, the market has responded.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. How long? So you said it took you years to figure out. How long did it take exactly to kind of go from your original model, where it sounds like it was more kind of consulting based, to that model?
Yeah, it's a good way to describe it. So the business started in 2014. So we've been at it for 10 years. We've been doing the predictive CRO for the last 6 years.
Okay, so about 4 years before you like kind of had the details so you could understand. But yeah, that makes sense. So now that you've been doing it then for the 6-year period, what's your biggest learning from that as it relates to business and growing a company?
Yeah, you're saying just agnostic of doing A/B testing. What's the biggest thing we've learned from just running a business and trying to get from point A to point B to point C? Ryan, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, specifically as it relates to your business model, because you got a really unique one.
I mean, the first thing, to get good at something, you have to do a lot of it. So, for example, communicating our value proposition to the market. By the way, it's a big part of my job. Now, about 2 years ago, we kind of re-engineered all of it, kind of started from scratch. To do it, I personally did about 100 sales pitches and reworked it over and over and over. And I still am very involved. I do about 5 a day, every day.
Every day, really? Good for you, man. That's a lot of volume still.
Yeah. And I have a great team. It's a total team sport. I'll tell you how many I did today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did 6 today. There was a 7th, but they...
Good. Well played, man. So, so you redid it 2 years ago, basically actively listening. And so that is driving kind of the focus. Yeah, man. I mean, sounds like you kind of reinvented yourself 6 years ago, and then you just reinvented yourself again 2 years ago. So you're at
We'll do it again.
Another 2 years, you got to do the same thing over again, right?
Well, because here's the reality. What worked for us 6 years ago wasn't going to get us to the next level. And what's working for us now, I don't know what the shelf life on it is, but I think it's safe to say, whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it's going to plateau. So you constantly reinvent. And whatever you do, you should do it at high velocity. That's how you get better. You do something over and over and over again.
Yep.
If you don't get the repetitions, it's really hard.
Yeah, the reps are huge. It's funny. So I started, like I told you before the show, I've been helping teams do AI, like skill transformation, right, for go-to-market teams. And like I've been finding like 30 different use cases, most of them new, per client that I work with, which is wild, right?
Wow.
But it's
huge.
Because, yeah, like I think I'm up to about 600 now. And that's not just from clients, that's my own personal stuff, cross marketing, sales, you name it. But it's pretty wild. So like that's one of the things that sticks out at me. Like I didn't anticipate that. And then it's not always just like the use cases, it's like the tweaks to it. Like I was working with someone, and this is more A/B testing. Let's say, actually, an example today. I was working with a company, and I looked at their email open rates, and one of them had a 94% open rate, like on the email subject line across like, it was significant. It was across like 300 sample size. It's not huge, but big enough. And this is to C-level executives at enterprise, right? So like that shit
really
just
hard to do.
But the reply rate was pretty low. So I'm like, all right, let's try this. Take that subject line, have basically ChatGPT, Copilot, you name it, reverse engineer the message that lives like basically that executes on the promise of that subject line and write a prospecting email from that. So then it did that, and then we layered on different things like key frameworks, sequences, stuff like that. So like that's like one example of what you're saying, like living in the work and seeing what you got to do next. It just kind of comes to the front of my mind. So,
Great
so
example, Ryan.
thanks, man. So to shift gears, dude, like, so what would you say right now? Like, love the fact that you're, I don't want to call you a Renaissance man because you keep reinventing yourself, but like, so like, what's your biggest challenge now with growing the business? Like, obviously you have flow if you're doing 5 calls a day in terms of sales calls, but like, what do you see as the biggest like bottleneck right now at the stage that you're at?
Well, I think I don't know I don't know if I'd articulate this big. I think every growth channel has you're going to hit a ceiling where what you're doing is going to flatline. It's going to plateau. You just can't get any more, whether it's an outbound channel, inbound channel, running ads. And so I think there's 2 things on my executive is there some way that we could reinvent this channel and just totally change what we're doing? Number 2, can we add something new? If outbound is working for us, can we do more inbound? If LinkedIn is getting us leads, okay, can we do content on YouTube? And how do you do it in a way that you get the repetitions rapidly?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that's one of the reasons I post on LinkedIn 5 times a week. It's to get the repetitions, to get better at it and figure out what's working. I'm not very good at it. I see people that do it, and they write a few sage bullet points, and like 100 people are like, yeah, this is incredible advice, and I want to do business with them. And I'll tell you, that's not what's happening for me. But you can either give up or you can do a lot of it and figure out how to get better.
Yeah. So you're saying just maxing out growth channels and knowing when to kind of like shift to the next one and go all in on it. Is that what you
that's right. That's right.
Okay.
And resist the shiny new toy. Be like, oh, let's do LinkedIn, let's do YouTube, let's do Facebook, let's do outbound, let's do a bunch of things. Like it's hard to do more than a couple of things well at a time.
It's seductive because like as an entrepreneur, you're hardwired to like want new or do new because that's what rewarded you in the past. But then it could also be like the woman in the red dress, right? Which is always like, it's attractive to do a matrix analogy.
Yeah, great analogy.
Well,
Hey Ryan, I gotta wrap up here in another minute.
Yeah, man.
Sorry, I meant to tell you I had a hard stop at 4, but
all good, man. We went a little bit long, so what we can wrap up now. Tell people where they could find you, where they could find more about you, and then we'll wrap it up from here, man.
Yeah, if you find it interesting, check me out on LinkedIn. I post every day at 7:30 a.m. Eastern. And if you think Spiralyze is interesting because you want to hear more about A/B testing, spiralyze.com.
Sounds good, man. Well, thanks for being on the show, and we will see you all on the next episode.
Ryan, thanks for having me. This was great.